Hey guys, Fallen Messiah here and welcome to another Diablo 4 video. First of all, I hope all of you are having a great day. It's a fresh start of Season 9 in Diablo 4, everything is new, and we all just starting out to gear up our characters, preparing to assemble our builds, to crush the monsters and get to the highest difficulties in the game. And what better opportunity to present the very first video of my new series, called Cain's Corner. This is going to be a series where I take concepts, mechanics, and items from Diablo and break them down or explain them in a way that's easy to understand, whether you're a new player or a seasoned veteran of the game. So if you like this concept and you find it helpful, like the video, sub to the channel, and I will make sure to make more. So today are new beginnings, new season, everything is fresh, all our characters are level 1, or they're just getting started on their journey to become the ultimate demon-slaying machines. To that end, you will undoubtedly try to make a build of your own, or maybe you will seek the help of seasoned veterans who have already established themselves in creating these builds in various places such as Maxroll, Mobalytics, or Diablo 4 Planner, for instance. And these websites often tell you exactly what kind of items you should be using for the end game. Skills, paragons, and overall they're very helpful, especially for people who don't have the time or lack the knowledge to assemble these builds for themselves. I also have plenty of builds of my own, with a couple of them coming very soon this season as well. And in all of these builds, there is one item that specifically stands out, and it's called Shroud of False Death. You undoubtedly heard about it, seen it featured in plenty of these builds as sort of a best-in-slot item for pretty much almost any character, really. Or you've even been lucky to have one of your own in the previous seasons. So why is it so good? And why is this item everywhere? Shroud of False Death is a coveted Mythic Unique that belongs in a class of the best items in the game, such as Shaco and the Ring of Starless Skies, for example. So in this video, I will be dissecting everything about this item. Why is it so good? Why is it so coveted? What makes it the best item in the game, in my opinion? There will be some math, some calculations, and overall just general deep diving into everything that makes this item great. So if you like these kind of videos, if you like these kind of deep dives into the concept of Diablo 4, give the video a like, drop a sub to my channel, and I'll make sure to make more. Anyway, let's get straight to it. Alright, so let's take a look at this item and let's just kind of analyze it a little bit and see what it's all about. So, how do you get the Shroud of False Death? There are several ways of getting it. So just like with other Mythic Uniques, you can either craft it or you can find it in the open in the game. Now your best chances of course are just killing the layer bosses, killing Duriel, Andariel, Belial, etc. These have the biggest chances of dropping any Mythic Unique, including Shroud of False Death. Other way is to craft it. You can craft it by interacting with your jeweler. Now, if you do craft it, you will need 2 resplendent sparks and a whole bunch of runes. 6 legendary runes, back runes. You also need 6 rares and 6 magic runes as well. In previous seasons, including the season 8, this has been quite a feat because the legendary runes weren't dropping all that often, but in Season 9, hopefully, things are going to change more positively in this direction. They added more deterministic ways of getting these runes by doing the Undercity, and also lair bosses should be dropping them more commonly now. You can also use 2 sparks to craft a random item. You get a random Mythic Uniques, but if you're trying to get the Shroud, your chances are not good. So you always want to use the recipe to craft them in a deterministic manner. Now let's analyze what this item actually does. So first of all, immediately there's this implicit +1 to all passives. So this is basically, to cut the story short, this is one of 2 reasons why this item is, in my opinion, the best item in the game. We're going to talk a little bit more about what this +1 to all passives actually means, but let's go over through some other stats as well. It also adds +2 all stats, also adds max life, and then also has these 2 other affixes that are just not that good, to be honest. Especially this one, plus additive damage on next attack after entering stealth. That's completely irrelevant. So that's kind of like a filler affix. I wish honestly this item had something else, but I digress. And finally we have resource generation, which can be useful in some situations, but ultimately This item has 3 great affixes and 2 incredibly bad affixes, in my opinion. And then there's this legendary power that says, if you haven't dealt damage in the last 2 seconds, you gain stealth and a 40% movement speed. So, how does that look like? Well, once I don the item, 2 seconds have passed, and as you can see, I am now in stealth mode, and I gain more move speed. Which actually can be quite useful for blasting, so it provides you with more mobility. The stealth option itself is not super useful, because you will go out of stealth if you do damage, if you receive damage, and honestly, sometimes you just randomly go out of stealth, especially if your mercenary interacts with monsters for whatever reason. So this is kind of like a nice little gimmick, but that's not ultimately what makes this item so good. It's just something on top of everything else. Now, let's talk about the meat and potatoes of Shroud of False Death. +1 to all passives. What does that actually mean? So, I took the liberty of taking my Ice Shards Sorcerer, and I will be using him as sort of an example. So when you open up a skill tree for any character, you are presented with active spells and you are presented with passives. Now ordinarily, you only have a select few passives that you can pick at any given time. But as you can see, every single passive in the game here has this one little point next to it, even if I haven't actually put any hard points in, like so, for example. So it says here, item contribution 1, rank 1 out of 3. This means that it has a skill point, even though that I didn't physically put any available points into this passive. This has a snowball effect because every class has like 20 plus different passives, and if you get a +1 to all passives, every single little thing gets passively increased, and it actually snowballs into considerable amounts of damage, defense, and utility. But one thing is just to tell you that, oh, okay, +1 passives, you get more damage, you get this, you get that. But I actually want to demonstrate just how impactful +1 to passives actually is. So I did some math, I did some pictures, some slideshows that we're gonna go over just to demonstrate how powerful this actually makes this character specifically do. How much damage, how much everything we get just from that one +1 to all passives. Now, before I give you a full breakdown on what +1 to all passives really means for this build, I just want to point out a couple of things about how passives work in the game. So a lot of passives are conditional. It's not always a flat out bonus, but instead, if X happens, you get Y. For example, Elemental Dominance says that our core skills deal, 4% extra damage per level when we cast them above 50 mana. However, if you're always casting your skills above 50 mana, then this bonus always applies to you, even though it is conditional. Or for example, this protection that says that when we use a cooldown, we get a barrier for 3 seconds. But if we are spamming cooldowns, which in most sorcerer builds you do, you're gonna get this bonus all the time. So I just wanted to point out that even though a lot of these passives, don't immediately give you bonuses, but they require a certain action, if this action is part of your gameplay loop, then you are still benefiting from that bonus all the time. Also, just another quick disclaimer, the examples that I'm going to show you are just for this build specifically. For example, this is a core skill that does frost damage. If I had like an ultimate ability as my main setup, or if I relied on conjurations, like for example Hydra or Lighting Spear, my passives would look a little bit different, or in other ways, the bonuses would look different. So just something to keep in mind, that this is a case-specific example that's not going to be relevant for every single build, right? The whole point of this is to demonstrate just how powerful +1 to all passives is, but I'm using one real build as an example. So just something to keep in mind, that not every build is going to take advantage of all of these passives in exactly the same way. Alright, now with that out of the way, let's actually go into the examples for this build. So I've taken all the passives that I feel are the most relevant for the build, not all of them, but most, and I grouped them into different categories. I group them into damage, defense, and utility. So, for example, for damage, we have all of these different passives. Like, again, this is a single skill point +1 to all passives. This is what you get. So, Elemental Dominance, we talked about it. For example, you get 4% extra multiplicative damage. Glass Cannon, 8% extra multiplicative damage. Precision Magic, 5% lucky hit chance. Inner Flames, 6% X damage while healthy, and with barriers, with a proper gameplay loop, you're healthy all of the time, so you always benefit from that. That's what I'm talking about. Permafrost, 6%. Hoarfrost, 3%. Icy Touch, 4%. Elemental Synergies, 3%. As you can see, this adds up incredibly quickly. This is just one build, one example, 1 point to all passes, but look at how many different sources of multiplicative damage we receive just for that +1 to all passives. So when you actually see it like this, when you contextualize it in this manner, I think that it actually makes a little bit more sense as opposed to just seeing the stat on the item. Now you get a little bit more of a visual clarity on what that actually means and what that actually does for you. So I also did the math here. This is actually 34% multiplicative damage and 5% lucky hit chance based on all of these passives. So that's not bad at all. That's basically an extra legendary aspect in damage in something like, for example, a glove or a ring slot or something like that. Now let's go with defense. So here we have like 3% all res, 2% damage reduction, 10% extra damage reduction, 6% extra damage reduction, more barriers. So just overall, it's not just lots of damage, 35, 34% extra multiplicative damage. It's also all kinds of other things, more resistances, more barrier, more damage reduction, just kind of evening out your build, making it a lot more fluid in pretty much every aspect of the game. Just to hide myself so that you can see what's happening here, I did the math as well. So this is 18% damage reduction, 3% all res, and 10% barrier. Again, just +1 to all passives. Now let's go with utility, because there is a lot to cover here. So basically, these are all the other miscellaneous things that I found are neither defense nor offense. I kind of grouped them all together into utility. So that's what I was talking about when I was saying that it just kind of evens out your build really well. For example, Devastation, more mana. Elemental Attunement allows you, the chance on crit to reset the cooldown of your defensive skills. Primordial Binding, you get more move speed, more mana regen. And by the way, if you were rocking a Hydra build or something like a Lightning Spear, like a Conjuration build, Hydra is going to be very popular, this season right now. I'm playing it as well, and you can expect a build guide dropping for it, in a week or so. So, for example, if you're rocking a Hydra build, now this is no longer a utility. This turns into a offensive passive because you're benefiting from this 2% to summon damage. This is per summon, by the way. If you have 10 summons out, that's 20% multiplicative damage per level of that passive. Just to show you how powerful these passives can really be. But because we're not taking advantage of summons in this build, this is now a utility passive. So we're taking advantage of move speed and more mana regen. Icy Veil, more barrier duration. Cold Front, more chill, chance to freeze, more move speed, and cooldown reductions. So again, just kind of evens out the build, makes it a lot more fluid in every aspect. Here you can see, what this actually means, what this amounts to. So just mana, barrier duration, cooldown reduction, more chill, more move speed, more mana regen. Like basically every facet of this build becomes more fluid, becomes better because of that one single point to all passives. That's what this does for you. And then just to kind of recap, like basically +1 to all passives, what this does for you. Just the most important things, 34% extra multiplicative damage, 18% damage reduction, and tons of extra utility. Just these three things alone are like so good for any build, and ultimately this is what this means to have +1 to all passive. This is why this item is the best in the game. So hopefully this visualization kind of helps to bring this whole thing a little bit more clarity. I'm also a very visual person, so if someone was explaining the same thing to me, this is how I would like to receive it, with kind of like actual examples on one particular build. so that you can kind of see exactly what +1 to all passives really means on an actual real example with real values. And also, if I can allow myself to compliment myself a little bit, I really think this graphic, looks real nice. I really took a lot of time making them, so hopefully you guys enjoy it as well. And basically that concludes this demonstration when it comes to what +1 to all passives means for this item. However, this is just one of two reasons why this item is so good. Now let's go to the reason number 2. It might surprise you. Now I teased there are actually two reasons why Shroud of False Death is so powerful. +1 to all passives is 1. However, the all stat bonus is actually really significant, which I'm gonna talk about right now. But before I do, I just wanted to showcase something on my Eternal character. This is my Eternal character. It's actually the first character I ever created all the way back in Season 3. This is my Necromancer. And over here, I just wanted to show you a little something. This is a legacy item. Now, if you say this item and you're new to the game, then you might immediately notice some things are just not all that right. For example, why is willpower spawning on my necro item? What's up with that? This item has willpower, crit strike chance, lucky hit chance, and +3 to bone spear. It's all over the place. Let's get back to our example, our Ice Shard Sorcerer, and let's get back to the Shroud of False Death. So, it has this plus to all stat affix. Before Season 4 and Season of the Loot Reborn, items worked a little bit differently. Items could have rolled any of the 4 primary stats, so items could roll Strength, Intelligence, Willpower, or Dexterity for any item slot, regardless of the class that you were playing. In Season 4 and onwards, this is now changed so that you can only really get your primary stat in the game. And that change was for the better, don't get me wrong. However, this also means that means of increasing other attributes in the game other than your main have been increasingly more rare to find. Why are they important? Why are the all stats valuable? Why do we need strength, willpower, dexterity to begin with? Well, there's really only one answer to that, and that is your Paragon board. Let's open it up, let's see what I mean. So you likely already know this, but it's worth repeating just in case maybe you're just starting to play the game after a long time or you played it for the first time. So you have Paragon board here. This is your starter board, and you can put up to 4 additional boards on top of it. So this is additional board number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. Every board comes with its own legendary node. This is kind of the name of the Paragon board. So the name of this board would be Fundamental Release, because that's the same name as legendary node. And every one of these also comes with a couple of these rare nodes. These rare nodes can be powerful sources of additional stats, additional bonuses. And in order to activate them, they have this kind of basic component, and they also have this bonus component that you can activate if you meet the requirements. So let's take a look at this rare node, for instance. Suffuse Resilience. We get 5% damage reduction, 6% resistance to all elements, which isn't bad for a single node in a board. That's a pretty good bonus. But also, if we meet these requirements, if we have 1155 intelligence and 260 willpower, we also unlock this additional bonus of extra 3% all res. Now, as you can see, we got this bonus fairly easily, without much of a hassle. That's because required stats to unlock these bonuses are actually pretty low at the first couple of boards, but the required stats become increasingly harder to hit on boards 3, 4, and 5. That's why when you're setting up your Paragon board, it's kind of important thing to keep in mind which rare nodes are gonna provide the biggest bonuses to you, and then you kind of try and make sure you put these Paragon boards kind of in the beginning of your journey. Does this make sense? Let me skip right to the very last board here. So as you can see, now the stats to unlock these bonuses become increasingly harder to hit. So for example, this one, if I so choose, would give me 40% fire damage and 10 intelligence, and also there's this bonus that I need over 500 willpower just to get this additional 20% fire damage. Or how about this? This requires almost 500 dexterity if I want to gain additional 30% critical strike damage. Or perhaps something even more useful, we get 4% maximum life if we have 530 willpower plus. Now look at this. We are hitting this bonus. However, we're only hitting it for around 126 willpower. If we had less than that, we would not be hitting this bonus. If you take a look at our Shroud of False Death, with 2 Masterworking crits to all stats, it gives us 288 stats. So without this item, we are not hitting these bonuses at all. As you can see, over here, I'm not getting 4% extra max life because I no longer have the required willpower. I'm not getting this another 6% damage reduction because I don't have the required willpower. And I'm not getting additional 30% crit strike damage because I don't have enough dexterity. And that's why Shroud of False Death is so powerful, because this all-stat affix is deceptively powerful in the current state of the game. Because before, if you lack dexterity, if you lack willpower, you could make up with these by just having them on the items, but items no longer spawn with anything other than the primary stat. So these all-stat affixes are rare and very valuable to unlock additional bonuses. So not only does this item gives us +1 to all passives, and I already explained what that means for this build, 34% more damage, more damage reduction, more stats, more utility, more everything, but it also unlocks additional extra bonuses for our Paragon board. It gives us even more life, even more damage reduction, even more crit strike damage, etc. So just this plethora of bonuses that allows this item to be so powerful and so good for virtually any build in the game. And that's why Shroud of False Death is the best item in the game. And there you have it, guys. This is a full breakdown on what is, in my opinion, the best item in Diablo 4, Shroud of False Death. Why is it so powerful? Because of +1 to all passives and because of the huge bonus to all stats. We just broke down both of these and I just showed you exactly why they are so good and why they are a staple in almost any build in the game. Now, personally, how good is this for the game? I think this item needs an alternative. Before, we had Tyrael's Might, which was also kind of a go-to item for that item slot. But with Shroud of False Death, you get just so much out of it. It's just a superior item in any way. But anyway, that's been it for me today. This will be the first episode of Cain's Corner, where we dive deep into the mechanics, into the items, into everything Diablo 4. We dissect them and we kind of explain them both to the casual audience and to the veteran players. If you enjoyed this concept, if you would like to see more of this kind of content from me in the future, then consider subscribing. It helps me out tremendously. Like the video and let me know what else would you like to see on the channel. And also stay tuned because right now I'm playing Hydra Sorcerer and the brand new Archmage Necromancer builds in Season 9. I already made guides for these builds during the PTR, but I will be making full-fledged Season 9 guides very soon for these two builds. They are coming up, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, that's gonna be it for me. Thank you for watching and I'll be seeing you in the next one.